Hey everybody, it's Dave Carlson again with Giga Pod. What you see behind me is nearly finished Giga Pod. You can see we've got the siding on, the trim's all painted up, the fans are all installed. On the other side you can see that the electrical system is mostly complete. The last things we have to do are install the transformer right behind me and connect that all up to the distribution inside the pod, and then get our racking in. Then we'll be energizing, and next, probably inside of 2 weeks, we'll be energizing the pod and loading it full of S9s is what's expected to come in. So we'll be able to shoot some video pretty soon showing a full pod cranking away, mining Bitcoin. I think one of the important things, I think that, and it's good opportunity that we're here when we've been doing the excavation, is you can see that we brought in all of this conduit underground to bring in the really significant wiring that's required to be able to bring this much power into a single location. I mean, this is more power than most industrial buildings. It probably equates to about the amount of power that would be used by 400 homes. So all in just this one spot. So significant digging is required, big pipe, lots of big wire that's, you know, like 3/4 inch thick wiring. But you can also see that we have like charter cable, Frontier, PUD fiber. This is necessary for the site to have multiple options for its internet service. One thing we wouldn't want to have happen is for the internet to go down and not have a backup, and then the whole mining site would be down. So in this case, we've literally got 3 different providers represented in this trench that bring in internet service. This is actually this grouping of pipes here is where the transformer will live. So we'll drop a big transformer right here off the corner of the pod, and that'll supply all the power. If you look down in these trenches, I mean, this is pretty significant, large piping that has to be brought in and around to the main distribution panel for where all the power kind of comes in and then goes from there into the pod in the form of what they call branch circuits. And we'll go around the long way. There's an easier way to get over and into the pod. The last video we did, we had just installed the fans and we'd finished out with all the siding and everything. So I won't really talk about that as much, but you can see right now the crews actually started building the filter intake system. Is basically a grid metal screen that traps a filter media that we buy by the roll, trap that in between another screen, and then put louvers on it so that the filter media is easily changeable, and we can control like the thickness of the filter media all the way to the thickness of the opening that we've created there. So we can play around with the density of the filter media depending on the time of year. For example, in the winter we don't need as much airflow, so we don't need as much filtration. We can actually free that up a little bit if we want. Or for example, during construction, which is going to happen literally next week, we're going to start clearing this land and spotting the sites for all the different pods. There'll be 20 pods on this site. That's going to create a lot of dust. And this pod will be running by then, so we'll have a much thicker, more dense filter setup on this. So this bundle of conduits will come up into what we call a main distribution panel. That's sort of the heart of a pod, where the main power comes in and all of the main circuits go back out into the pod and feed the different electrical panels. And you can see it's located under the roof, and that's not by accident. We want to keep that particular component in the shade as much as we can, and we want to keep it in the airflow so that it stays cool. Any of this electrical equipment that stays cool is going to run more efficiently, and that saves us just even a 1 or 2% more efficient device is going to save us a lot of money over time in terms of heat loss and things like that. So these are some of the elements that we have to be careful with. Even that transformer out there will participate in the misting system. We'll use a high pressure water misting system during the hottest part of the summer to inject water into the airflow just to help cool and also bring some moisture back into the air. You wouldn't want to picture like wet, humid air. It literally takes the air from absolutely zero humidity, dry, to about 20% humidity, which is, you wouldn't even sense moisture. But just that much humidity helps move the heat through a space and keeps the air picking up heat and moving it out. Come on in. Okay, so the last time I was in here talking about the pod, we had the fans were installed. I don't think any of the rest of the gear that you see in here was in. At this point, we've got the back cans for all the big panels. The circuits are pretty well, I think, finished being routed. So they'll basically dress those into the breakers and clean that all up and put the covers on. And then up above, in the cable tray above us, they'll be preparing to wire into the actual power distribution that goes into the racking. So we'll have the racking in here in a couple of days once they make some room for us, and they'll wire into the racking to actually land the power really right next to where the miners will all live. So again, I think I've described this before, but essentially imagine a wall of racking that starts about here where this fan is, goes all the way to the ceiling, about 13.5 feet tall, and then all the way down to the end of the row of fans, and then just literally solid, every inch used up by in this case of this pod will be S9s. So literally this entire wall of racking will be packed tight with, for this pod it'll be S9s for Bitcoin mining, but other pods will have a mix of GPU, S9s, L3s for Litecoin mining, or a number of other mineable blockchain hardware servers that we can get on the market. Each fan is like individually, can be individually controlled with a shutoff here, but down here at the end of the row, we essentially have our fan controllers. I think it's a pretty interesting piece of technology that we're working on. So you have your fan controllers, which are essentially a special motor starter controller that actually controls the speed of the fans. And then in our racking, we have the ability to measure temperature in the vertical plane. So not just a single temperature sensor where you know in general what the temperature is, but literally forming a three-dimensional grid across this space will measure temperature, humidity, airflow, and that will be fed back to the main controlling computer that will tell these fan controllers whether to speed up or slow down, or speed up some fans but not others, and that kind of thing. So we'll get a good strong sense, collect a lot of data about how the airflow is working and make adjustments so that we don't create hotspots. Sometimes in our other facilities, strange wind patterns or airflow patterns can create these sort of little tumbling hotspots where the heat just builds up and it doesn't go out, and we don't want to have any of that here. I mean, we're just about finished with the inside of this pod, so there's not, aside from the racking and the distribution of the power within the racking, there's not too much more left to do. And our transformer will show up, should be next week, and we'll be turning this thing on very, very soon. So we'll start to be able to demonstrate the fans actually running and equipment running in here, and give you a sense of like just what kind of crazy airflow this is going to be. I'm expecting this to be sort of like standing in a wind tunnel, sort of like if you had a giant S9 and you stood inside of it. That's what this should be like, just basically a giant miner.